What I noticed lately is that a lot of men rather stay single because they're tired of giving their everything and ending up with nothing.
Do you know what the funniest thing about so many men is nowadays? So many men are no longer scared of being single.
Fellas, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about how women has finally realized that men aren't afraid of being single anymore. And now, they're panicking, they don't know what to do. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's dive right in.
What I noticed lately is that a lot of men rather stay single because they're tired of giving their everything and ending up with nothing. Do you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. A lot of men have woken up to the harsh reality that no matter how much effort, love, or stability they bring, it's often not enough. They pour their time, energy, and finances into relationships, only to be left drained, unappreciated, and starting over from zero. So now, they're choosing peace. It's not that men don't want love. They're just done playing a game where the rules constantly change and the reward is disappointment.
I really want a boyfriend. I want romance, I want to feel special, I want those lovey-dovey moments. I want to date again. But the problem is, I can't. I cannot open myself up to another person, and I keep trying and trying, but every single time it's like my mind and my body physically won't let me, because I live in such peace right now, okay? Nobody is in my life, so I'm in peace. Whereas every single time I have had a relationship or dated, it's been so disruptive to my mental health, to my physical health, that I can't allow myself to do it. And I'm genuinely scared that I'm going to end up alone forever, purely because I will not let anyone in. But it's so hard when you've been hurt so much in the past, and I just don't know how to get past it. I'm happy, but I'm ready to have someone else in my life, but also I'm not. I don't know, I'm sure lots of people can relate, but yeah.
This right here is exactly why so many men are choosing peace over partnership. Because just like this woman said, she's happy, but also ready, she wants love, but can't open up. That kind of emotional confusion becomes a burden men are expected to fix, manage, or tolerate. Men are tired of stepping into relationships where they have to prove they're not like the last guy, while being punished for damage they didn't cause. So yeah, men aren't cold or afraid of love. They just know peace is better than walking on emotional landmines.
Do you know what the funniest thing about so many men is nowadays? So many men are no longer scared of being single. They're now scared of being in a soul-sucking, detrimental relationship that's only going to waste their time, waste their energy, waste their effort, and waste their money. They would rather be single than be in a bad relationship. So it's not that men are complaining because they're single. Men are complaining because they've just seen everything as such a waste of time for them lately.
Absolutely, this is the fact. Men today aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of being drained. And honestly, rightfully so. Modern relationships too often come with emotional manipulation, financial pressure, and zero appreciation. It's not that men hate women, they just value their peace now. Being single isn't loneliness, it's freedom from walking on eggshells or being treated like a walking ATM. So no, men aren't broken, they're just finally waking up and setting standards. And that scares people more than anything. Men choosing peace isn't weakness, it's evolution.
What happened to men pursuing girls? When was the pivotal moment that a man chose to not go after a girl anymore or put in any effort? It seems like guys can just put the bare minimum and not even really put in effort anymore. They don't really care to. Or they're like, why don't girls just go and make the first move and make the effort? When did it become a thing? Now it's like role reversal where they expect girls to be making the first moves, yearning for a guy and chasing him. That is, I feel like, the downfall of why it's so hard to meet someone, because men don't put in effort anymore or don't care to put in effort. And a relationship won't work unless the guy likes the girl just a tiny little bit more. He has to like her just the tiniest bit more for it to work in the long haul. So it would make sense if a guy really wanted to get to know you, that he would go leaps and bounds to get to know you. And when did that shift? Because back in my mom's era, if a guy wanted to take you out on a date, he had to go up to you, he had to get your number, he had to go through lengths to try to talk to you, even if you weren't interested at first. How my parents met? They met at a bar, and my dad asked for my mom to dance, and my mom was like, get out of here. She wanted nothing to do with him. If he had just left and listened to her, they would have never gotten married, they would have never had kids. But he was persistent. He wanted to take her out on a date so badly. He was like, what do I have to do to take you out on a date? She was working late their first date, so he went to her work, picked her up, prepped a dinner, took her to a park, just planned the whole thing. He wrote her poetry. He was yearning. How my aunt and my uncle met. My aunt was a dancer on a cruise ship, and he was the photographer. And he was persistent. She overheard him one night saying to his buddy, he was like, I'm gonna marry that girl. He had just met her. And now they're married and they have 2 kids together. I don't hear anything like that now. Now we're praising eye contact. Now we're praising if a guy held a door open to us and smiled. That is what we're praising. It feels so backwards. And I just wonder when it shifted, because I feel like that is the whole downfall of why it's so hard to meet someone now. Because men just don't care anymore.
The reason men stopped pursuing like they used to is simple. Modern dating turned effort into a liability. Guys watch their friends get ghosted after planning thoughtful dates, get labeled creepy for showing interest, and get told real men do everything while being offered nothing in return. It's not that men don't care, it's that they learned effort doesn't guarantee respect, interest, or even basic reciprocity anymore. So now, they wait to see if it's mutual before investing. And honestly, that's just self-respect in today's dating landscape.
I'm just going to talk about this comment that was left on one of my videos, and there's quite a few men that leave similar comments to this, and this proclamation that, you know, this is why men are staying single. And this is obviously not all men, but there is a reason why men do this, and the reason that men say I'm staying single, which in other terms basically means I'm also willing to have a string of hookups that mean nothing to get my own needs satisfied, is that the reason that they do this is because they are not willing to face themselves. Any man that says, you know, I'm staying single, is because they do not want to be in a situation that is causing them to face parts of themselves that have been denied, that have been repressed, where they are not taking accountability for the way that they show up in relationships. And obviously, if they're not in relationship or opening themselves up to the right person, they're not going to have this mirroring. And so by isolating and saying, you know, this is why men are staying single, it's just basically another way of saying, I don't want to face myself. Because unfortunately in Western society and sort of in the modern world, men are becoming apathetic, they're becoming more feminized. And when wounded feminine energy shows up in men, it causes them to lack accountability, to not want to take responsibility, to be flighty, to not commit to things, which is automatically a massive turn-off to women that are in a healed feminine energy. And so the sorts of women that they would actually, you know, thrive in relationship with, they're not attracting anyway, because they're not opening themselves up to the possibility that actually they're the ones that are responsible for the type of women that they're actually pulling in the first place. And so it becomes this vicious cycle. But when men say, you know, that they're staying single as an act of, you know, trying to control their circumstances, the reality is underneath that they're feeling very much out of control. And because they don't have a language for communicating, you know, what's going on underneath, because no man that is in a healed masculine energy is going to make this proclamation and decide that he's going to be single for the rest of his life. Because when you look at the way that obviously masculine energy thrives in life, it is to build, it's to continuously have something to move towards, to build some sort of legacy for self, and to feel as if they're creating a foundation, you know, and building something. And so when you're saying, you know, I'm cutting off my own growth, which is obviously what comes from being in a relationship anyway, they're automatically showcasing they're not actually in their masculine. Because to get to the end of your life and basically look back and say, you know, I worked a job that was okay, that paid the bills, sat on my own money so I didn't have to pay anything, you know, for women, and, you know, got to the end of my life with a string of hookups. You look back at that as a legacy for a male, and the level of regret that would come with that is not going to feel good. So if a man makes this proclamation, then this is what he really means. And emotional fulfillment in life comes from the depth of intimacy we have with our partners, with the people that are closest to us. And when we cut ourselves off from that and the possibility of exploring that, we don't live an emotionally fulfilling life. We live a life that's filled with surface level distractions, surface level projections that don't actually lean into anything of depth. And so when a man says this, he's likely very much in his feminine, in an apathetic energy where he doesn't want to commit to things. And so within a relationship, he's not going to take accountability. This is obviously very different for a man that chooses to stay single until the right person comes along and works on himself in the meantime. This is an attribute of a healthy masculine male, and a man that's able to concentrate and focus his energy in such a way that's actually going to be really supportive and conducive once the right partner shows up, or once he's ready to take that step with the right partner. And this is the sort of dynamic and mentality that actually breeds and calls in soul connection as well, because the man is anchored into his masculine energy as opposed to dismissing the concept of relationship altogether, which is naturally a byproduct of being very wounded. And soul connection in and of itself can only come in when you are truly connected to yourself, whether you're male or female. So if you don't have a deep understanding of, your own psyche, the way that you operate, of your own triggers, where you're not taking accountability and reconciling that internally, you're not actually in a position to attract in what would be like a deep soul connection anyway. So all of these things are interconnected. They all play into one another. But the difference is that when you are connected to self, you see the mirroring and the divinity in others. When you are not connected to yourself, you see through the eyes of separation, of somebody else wanting to take from you, as opposed to being with an open and generous heart that actually allows you to feel the fullness of what a relationship can actually bring for you.
This clip is a prime example of why men are tapping out of modern relationships. And not because they're unhealed or in their feminine. It's because when men express their boundaries, their preferences, or simply choose peace over chaos, it gets labeled as weakness, emotional immaturity, or fear of facing themselves. Let's clear something up. Choosing to stay single in today's dating landscape isn't about avoiding growth. It's about avoiding unnecessary destruction. Men aren't walking away from love. They're walking away from being blamed, gaslit, and told they're never enough, even when they give everything. She says that men who stay single are out of control or lack masculine energy. Really? Because it takes incredible discipline and strength to reject what society pressures you into. To say, no, I won't tie my life to someone who doesn't bring me peace. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And let's talk about the hookup culture part. Men didn't create it alone. Women participate too. So let's stop acting like men are the only ones out here avoiding commitment. The truth is, a lot of men did try. They committed, provided, loved, and still got divorced, replaced, disrespected, or treated like walking wallets. And now, when they take time to heal on their own terms, they get psychoanalyzed for not jumping back into a burning building. Newsflash. Men don't owe anyone a relationship. They're allowed to protect their peace. They're allowed to focus on building their own legacy without being told it's only valid if a woman is involved. So no, men staying single isn't the problem. The problem is that the minute a man sets a boundary or chooses solitude, he's accused of being broken. Maybe he's just done with being told that everything wrong in a relationship is his fault.